This is Patriots Playbook.
The legend.
This is Patriots Playbook.
The legend.
Patriots may have an advantage in the injury department, he tried to say. That's a term that I don't think I've heard since college. Porked. Christian Gonzalez's outlook on the rest of the season was probably gone. That's what I said. Porked. Pains me to say that Mike McCarthy pantsed him.
Outcoached him. Yeah, like
Pantsed him.
I absolutely
Dropped trowel. What you need to do then is take that 18-wheel of yours and just back up over those bastards. Beep, beep. Here I come.
Now, here's your host of Patriots Playbook, John Rook.
Anybody else feeling pork today? Seems to be the word of the day. Where's Eric Scalavino when we need him? Today's word of the day is porked.
Well, I did say, John, that if they couldn't block anybody, then they were going to be porked.
Porked.
And I was right.
Yeah, you were right.
Children of all ages.
Yeah, right. Exactly. We need to.
They are porked.
Oh my goodness gracious! Welcome into the playbook. We appreciate your time. We appreciate your listening. We appreciate your interest. I kind of begin today. I had to give this a little bit of thought. I usually just open up the microphone and we start talking. We talk football and we talk about the opponent that's coming up next. We talk about what the foreseeable future looks like. The schedule. Man, if they get on a run, 2 or 3 weeks, and maybe they get. I did not give that one bit of thought for this week. Now, I did pay attention to the Raiders. I watched the Raiders game the other night.
Yep.
Jason Horowitz, who's the play-by-play voice for the Las Vegas Raiders, he's going to join us here on the program in just a little bit because we are going to talk some football. We have to. That's what this show does. That's what the playbook is supposed to do. We talk X's, O's. We talk, strategy. We talk all that stuff here. But I got to admit, I felt like it was necessary to put just at least a twinge of perspective on what we've had to go through here the first 5 weeks, because what we've witnessed here, and I'm going to repeat it, even though I know you guys have talked about it, not only on PU, but I'm sure even on Catch 22, and fans are talking about it all over the country because we can see that by the trending on X and all that stuff that's going on right now. I saw earlier today, and I don't even remember which power poll it was, because I don't really believe in the NFL power polls. I think those are a joke. You got 32 teams. They're all pro football teams. So, you want to talk real power, then let's relegate somebody to the SEC or something after that. Pro football is a different beast. It's a small, confined world. But I saw something today that I thought I would never see again. New England was ranked 32nd out of 32.
Yeah, it was Mike Florio, I think, right?
Well, Florio was one. This was another one.
Oh, God.
And I think everybody's just piling on the Patriots. And this is, you remember how when you were a kid and, you were playing football in the backyard and somebody recovers a loose ball and everybody says, "Dog pile on Johnny!" Okay, well, guess what? We're dog piling on the Patriots! Right?
Yeah.
That's exactly what's going on now. And so everybody's flying in from everywhere, I'm the poor sap that fell on the football, and then all the neighbor kids are all just flying at me, taking off, and I'm buried under the sea of, humanity, a bunch of 13-year-olds. Oh, man, I'll never forget it, especially when I'm laying on top of the sprinkler. Oh, my God, that was painful. At any rate, right?
This is why we waited until it snowed to do
you
this.
guys did. See, but this was year-round stuff for us. Growing up in Texas, where famously there's only 2 sports, football and spring football.
Yeah.
We're playing football year-round.
Yeah.
Year-round. And even in the wintertime, it's kind of like, hey, you want to throw the ball around? Or we're working on plays for, the neighborhood games. We used to have neighborhood games in Texas.
That's cool.
Which is, it was kind of fun. My mom, believe it or not, when I was small, she was the all-time quarterback.
I like that.
Yeah, right?
She got a good arm?
She did.
Yeah, I bet.
Surprisingly, she was really good at winging it out to the, to the running back, on the wheel route.
Nice sideline throws.
Yeah, she could do that. Absolutely. Like how we digressed already. It's because I don't want to talk about this, but I have to. It's really it's the job here. At any rate, getting back to the power poll, seeing the Patriots down at the bottom, something that I thought that I would never see again. I've covered this team I've been privileged to cover this team for a long time. I've been privileged to work for this organization for half of its existence. This is year 64 for the New England Patriots, starting in 1960, right? So this is season 64 for the Patriots. I've been here for exactly half of them, 32.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's cool. I'm also old, but it's cool, and I feel like I'm qualified, at least to a certain extent, to offer some perspective. First and foremost, we are so incredibly lucky to have been where we have been, and we are so incredibly spoiled to have gone through what we've gone through in the last 20 years. In fact, we may be the most spoiled fandom that exists in professional sports short of the Yankees and Yankee fans, really, at least in this country, largely because of the success that this franchise has spun upon itself. And Mr. Kraft is right at the helm of all of that. You know, he's told many, many stories throughout his time, as ownership now, about how, he came from being a season ticket holder and he sat in those frozen aluminum stands in old, Schaefer Stadium, and, he went through 1-15. Hell, I know all about 1-15. I've told you, and I've told many of our listeners before, nobody wanted to do Rod Russ Coach's show the year that he was head coach here, so I did it. And I was working in Providence at the time. And the team went 1-15. Now, you tell me how we generated, interest week to week. And the answer to that is we did the best job we could. We put blinders on, and you just go after it, and you do it. And I have to admit, after Sunday's game this week, it's the first time I ever thought about pulling out those blinders again.
Yeah.
I was flabbergasted. Is that a good word? Flummoxed? Flabbergasted?
I'm running out of adjectives at this point to describe it.
Miss Robin and I were talking about it on the drive home out of the parking lot, and we were just like, never thought we'd see this.
Yeah. And
so then after you come to the slow realization that, party time is over, fellas, how do you fix this? How do you correct it? And there's so many different ways and approaches and so many different reasons. I think they're all feeding in to what is basically pile on the Patriots right now. Right. Dog pile on the Patriots. And the entire NFL is doing it. I'm looking at NFL memes out the wazoo over, never thought I'd see the Patriots last in the NFL again. Woohoo! Everybody's having a blast with this.
Rightfully so.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's where we're at. I think, I'm really careful, not only just because of like who my bosses are here.
See,
but I'm really careful about trying not to be too knee jerk about reactions.
Yeah.
Right. Like
that's important.
After I will fully admit that I was walking to my car on Sunday night after publishing game observations and watching that debacle against the Saints. Fire everybody. Yeah, you just you had a tendency to be just a smidge negative, right? I was like, I want to wake up Monday morning and I want to see the press release that everybody's fired.
Gone,
right?
Everybody's gone.
And at the same time,
we're going to hire Jermaine Wiggins and the entire Brockton High School staff to take over.
So I've looked at it. I've tried to look at it, rationally since then, because that obviously wasn't very rational. I tried to look at it rationally since then, and I think that the conclusion that I've come to is that it's a mischaracterization of the situation to say that this is a 2-week collapse.
Yeah,
and
it's
that's
more than that. It's way more than that.
And that's why you're starting to talk about on all of our shows, even the job status of the head coach of the team.
Right.
Is because this really began in 2020. And it's been a slow burn towards being ranked 32nd in the power ranking in week 5 of an NFL season. But it wasn't overnight that this team got to this point.
That is correct. And so now, we shouldn't really be surprised, even though we are. But we shouldn't be surprised that, hashtag Fire Bill has been trending.
Yeah, so the biggest thing is, and we were talking about this a little bit on PU at the end, it's two different conversations to me of, are they losing because they're just that bad in terms of the personnel on the team, or are they not very good in terms of the talent on the team, and now they're losing like this because they've let go of the rope? And if they've let go of the
There's
rope,
a little bit of both there, Ev.
if they've let go of the rope, then that's more than anything. I think it's going to be 1-15. Like they're not going to be any better than this.
It could be. I mean, I think we'll get a step closer to knowing that this week because you've already pointed out, as you know, I'm doing some of my due diligence on the Raiders. This is actually a really good matchup for just a crappy Patriots offense right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a very good outside of Max Crosby. I keep saying the same thing.
They got one guy.
Yeah.
Bill Belichick's expertise has been let's take their best player out of it and move around. On the offensive side, certainly. Defensively, the same case goes. Yeah. I mean, I thought they actually did a pretty good job of or at least we've seen teams do a pretty good job of going to guys like Micah Parsons and whatever in the past and somewhat neutralizing him. And other guys have made plays and beaten them, and I think that can be done here against the Raiders. However, we just don't know we don't know if the guys have let go of the rope, as you put it. We don't know yet, and we're gonna learn that more and more. If they let go of the rope, and this is all over, who needs to be held responsible for it? And to me, we're going right back to hashtag Fire Bill.
Yeah,
and I can't. To me, that's heresy. Okay. I'm always of the opinion that Bill Belichick has forgotten more football than I'll ever know.
Yeah.
All right? And I think that's why he'll still, in my estimation, go down as the greatest who have ever coached this game. He's got the championships to back it up. Now, there are a lot of people who believe this, and this is a pet peeve of mine as well. There are a lot of people who believe that, Tom Brady made Bill Belichick, not the other way around.
Yeah.
I don't subscribe to that. I'm glad to go on record to say that because
it just ignores history.
Of course it does.
Yeah.
Every great coach in history, thank you for saying that, because every great coach in NFL history has had a what, Evan?
Well, they've had a Hall of Fame quarterback.
Thank you.
But I'd also just say it ignores the history of how Brady got his start in the league. Like in 2001, the Patriots won the Super Bowl, and it wasn't because of Tom Brady.
It was because Brady happened to be, he caught lightning in a bottle. He was in the right place at the right time when Drew Bledsoe got hurt.
Yeah.
And then Bill Belichick saw something in Tom when Drew was ready to come back. He saw something in Tom, and especially in the way that the locker room reacted around Brady. He saw something in that and said, you know what, I think I'm going to let this ride. Somebody had to make that decision. So to say that Brady made Belichick is factually incorrect.
Yeah.
It is incorrect. Now, did Tom lead him to great successes as a coach? There's no doubt about it.
If you wanted to start, and I don't know if this is necessarily the most important thing right now, but if you wanted to start and say Tom Brady's career began in 2007, then you could sit there and say that it was all Brady, right? From 2007 on,
yeah. You could make the case, but
I would make the case that Brady was pulling the rope harder than anybody else.
Okay, but that's not what happened.
Right. That's my point.
There was 2001, 2003,
right.
2004.
And even all the success in between not making and winning the Super Bowl, AFC championship games, other things. So
for sure.
I just think what it comes back down to with Belichick is that if you've lost the buy-in of the locker room, I think that's always the final nail in any coach's job.
And that's why I'm having such a hard time, trying to put perspective behind this. I feel like that's my job. That's what this show's job has been for 22 seasons here on Patriots.com radio. Patriots Playbook has been here not only to talk a little X&O, to talk about the opponent, the game coming up, to also allow fans to vent from the previous game, but also to provide perspective in a historical, way based on how this franchise has, progressed.
Yeah.
And we've taken a huge step backward, and the only person within reason that you can point to is Bill.
Yeah. I made this analogy the other day, and I don't mean to repeat myself. I just feel like this is really what it comes down to me. Blaming the players on the current team, blaming Mac Jones, blaming the guys like that, is if a Fortune 500 company is going bankrupt and they pointed the finger at middle management, right? Like, and they
Yeah.
were like,
Yeah.
they were like,
Yeah.
oh, well, the managers didn't
Yeah.
do. No, when a company
Manager
goes,
of our shipping department needs to be fired.
Yeah.
You know, we're going bankrupt, but the shipping department is off base. You know,
Right.
we're going to clean house in the shipping department. It's the same principle. I
Yeah.
agree with that.
Yeah.
That's wrong.
when the company goes bankrupt, it's because somebody in the executive suite or somebody's is doing something wrong.
Have made big decisions, and they haven't gone the way. They haven't
Yeah.
been in the company's best interest.
Yeah.
That's the thing that I struggle with the most, because Bill has always said, "I'm only doing what is in the what I think is in the best interest of the football team."
Yeah.
When do we call him out on that and say you are no longer operating in the best interests of the football team?
Yeah, I mean, now, like, I think that when it goes with the Mac Jones question, like, we can sit here and I can tell you what my take on what Mac Jones is doing wrong that has led to him playing poorly the last couple of weeks. And we can do that. But I think what the bottom line is that when they drafted Mac Jones in 2021 as a good coach, good scouting department, good organization, which I think this is. Like, obviously, I wouldn't work here if I didn't think it was.
Of course.
The
None of us would be, by the way.
you have to recognize what you drafted. And if you think that you drafted a quarterback that was going to elevate the system and elevate the personnel around him, then you drafted the wrong quarterback. Like, that's not what Mac Jones ever was. Mac Jones was a high floor system QB.
He is. I was just going to say, he's very much a system QB. Tom Brady was not.
Yeah.
And Tom proved that over time, especially from 2007 on.
Right.
He's going to be, he'll go down as literally the greatest of all time, and he should, because he's got the championships that can also back up the numbers and the longevity and everything else that goes along with him. Tom is a unicorn. There may never be another one like him. As far as Mac Jones is concerned, he very much is a system quarterback.
Yeah.
And where, to me, the big problem lies is that they haven't treated him as such.
No.
The system
Has broken down.
Yes.
The system around the system quarterback is not systeming.
No, it's not systematic.
Right. So
They've got him trying to do something that he's not.
Yeah. So we can look at it from a coaching angle, and obviously, the coaching disaster that was last season.
And that let it all off.
But I think most importantly, it's now coming down to personnel around him. Mm-hmm. And if you thought that you were going to throw out this group of receivers and this offensive line with Mac Jones as your quarterback and be a good offense, then that's a miscalculation on the roster building. Like,
and who is in charge of roster building?
You had to look at him in 2021 and say, okay, if he is playing, to simplify it, if he's just playing a game of Madden on Xbox and all he's got to do is hit the right button when the receiver comes open, then this guy can do that.
I wish it were that easy.
But if he's got to, do everything perfectly and run around and make plays and use his arm and do all this different stuff, and this is going to fall apart.
Yeah.
So instead of recognizing that fact about the quarterback and getting him receivers and getting him protection on the offensive line and getting him a running game and getting him a third down running back and getting him a slot receiver that can get open quickly so he can get the ball out of his hands. Instead of doing all that, they've gone the total opposite direction. And so now in my mind, was Mac Jones ever going to be an elite MVP caliber? Like, let's take Brady out of it because nobody's Brady. But was he ever going to be Joe Burrow? Was he ever going to be Josh Allen? No, probably not.
No.
But could he have had some of the same success?
Smart football people, by the way, knew that he was not going to be those people.
Right. But
he came from Alabama, and he was surrounded by tremendous talent at Alabama. And, of course, obviously the word of Nick Saban. And, sure, everybody's going to buy that.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to buy that. Why wouldn't you? Track record speaks loudly.
At the same time, I don't want this to be taken as like Mac apologist, Mac excuse making or anything like that, but I still wholeheartedly believe it. The Patriots and Bill Belichick have ruined Mac Jones. They have ruined the quarterback. This is a playbook that we used to make fun of.
Yeah.
from other organizations.
Yeah.
Oh, you're going to saddle him with a coach that doesn't know what he's doing. Oh, you're going to put him in an offense that has all sorts of issues with the weapons and makes it tough to play quarterback on a guy that can't be tough to play quarterback for. They have broken this guy. They've ruined him. And at this point, based off the last couple of weeks, even based off of I came in week 1 and I was telling you all that I didn't love what I saw from Mac Jones on film, even when he was throwing for 300 yards against the Eagles, because there were little signs of footwork, mechanics in the pocket, distrust in the whole thing that I was seeing, that I was like, if this continues in this direction, this thing's going to fall apart. And I'm not saying that to toot my own horn. It was there for you to see. And
you always hope what you see is different from what really is.
Yeah. And he was already in my mind teetering as early as week 1. And it has completely fallen off the rails for him. And I will stay true to this. The biggest person to blame in all of that is Bill Belichick, not Mac Jones.
No, I agree with that. And of course, you can take it further. I mean, Mac has got a case of happy feet, as you put it, because he has no confidence in the line in front of him.
Yeah,
and nor should he. They've given him no reason to be confident.
Yeah, I mean,
otherwise he could be decapitated out there.
Yeah, it's troubling so Mac in his first 2 seasons, for all of his faults, in 21 and 22, even with Matt Patricia last year, Mac has always been a really decent, clean pocket passer. If you protect him and you keep him upright and you let him step into throws and let him navigate the pocket, he's been pretty good at that.
Yep.
This year he's been awful, even when he gets kept clean. Even when there is no pressure.
He's overthrowing guys. He's underthrowing guys. He's throwing pick sixes.
Because he's seeing ghosts.
Yes.
He's seeing ghosts.
He's Sam Darnold.
Yeah, he's seeing ghosts. So even when there isn't any pressure, he's bracing for pressure, or he's sensing pressure, or his feet are all over the place because he thinks that there is going to be pressure.
He's got a case of the putter's yips.
Yeah.
As the quarterback.
And I got to be honest with you, I don't know if he's talented enough to pull himself out of it.
I don't know either. I have to admit. We're trying to put perspective on this. This is our job here.
Yeah.
And this is kind of how I look at it. So let's just assume Mac is broken, as you said.
Yeah.
Let's just assume. All right. Again, time will tell. We'll know more in another month. Certainly whether or not that's the case, if he's even standing upright, or if he hadn't been benched, or if they haven't gone and gotten Colt McCoy or somebody like that to come in as a short-term replacement. I don't know. We don't know what's going to happen over the next few weeks.
Yeah.
But let's just assume Mac is broken.
Yep.
Okay? How do you fix? And if your answer to that is you can't, who's held responsible? And how do you hold this person responsible when he holds the keys to every freaking door in the place?
Yeah, so if Mac is truly broken, which I believe he is, I think there's no coming back for him. Is there a world where he comes back this week against the Raiders, for example, which is a worse defense and a worse pass rush, and it looks like it did early
maybe
weeks,
maybe
in spurts?
I kind of doubt it, but maybe I'll allow for a slim possibility here.
Right? Is there a world where he's, I would say, what he was in the first 2.5 games, not the second half against the Jets already started to come fully apart, but let's say the first 2.5 games, which was, I would say, functional. Mm-hmm. That's not saying that he was good. That's not saying he was great. So don't come at me with that. I am saying that he was a functioning NFL quarterback at that point in time.
Right. Okay.
Is there a world where he could get back to that point this season? I would say yes. And mostly that's because I trust Billy O to try to get him out of this. But is there a world where he's going to be a good quarterback? No.
That's the next issue, because if Bill Belichick is ultimately responsible, he should also be responsible for Bill O'Brien. And Bill O'Brien was brought here for a specific reason, and that is, of course, to put some, shall we say, professional caliber offense on the field, for the New England Patriots, which is led by Mac Jones. Now, Bill came in here to try to clean up a lot of stuff and integrate a real pro offense, whatever it may be. And this team, I read this number the other day. This team is the 5th lowest scoring team through 5 weeks in 64 years of Patriots football.
Yeah.
There have only been 5 teams worse, or 4 teams worse than what New England has done, which is 11 points per game right now.
Yeah.
Okay? So somebody has to own that.
Yeah.
And if you want to say, well, it's Bill and his decision-making and bringing in personnel, that's fine. But you brought Bill O'Brien in here to fix things, and not only has he not fixed them, they've gotten worse than what they were last year under Matty P.
There's some critiques of O'Brien, obviously, that I could throw out there. I think the main one, to me, is the running game. The running game has gone completely vanilla, and they don't really do much to get the running game going.
And I think a lot of that is because the offensive linemen are having an extraordinarily difficult time understanding, not only understanding, but performing their tasks.
Yeah, so I think that's part of it is like you can't get more complex on the ground until you can
fix what you got.
Yeah.
You got to be able to fix what's in front of you, and they can't seem to do that.
So they're just like running gap, like they're running duo, just like right up the middle.
And teams are stacking for that, and you're not getting any room. Yeah. Ramondre looks like he's running into a brick wall.
Yeah. So their running game from day one, I was like, ugh, like this is all of his faults too. Like Josh McDaniels is a great schemer in the run game, and then don't even think about like turning on like Miami film or San Francisco film and see all of like 11 moving parts that a Shanahan tree offense does to attack in the ground. This run game is like when people like joke like, oh, why do they just hand it up the middle and like 3 yards in the cloud? That's what they're doing. Like they're literally turning around. It's man-on-man blocking, and it's just power forward, and it's 3 yards. At best, right? And so the running game is where I would like immediately go with O'Brien. I would also mention like I was, you know me, John. I'm a big RPO guy.
Yep.
I love RPOs. I think they're sexy. All right, I love RPOs, and they've been a terrible RPO offense. Horrible, like absolutely terrible at it.
Correct.
They don't throw the ball down the field off RPOs, which was what I was hoping they were going to do. Slants, like things like that, where you get receivers moving down the field and then throw it off the run action. They throw a bunch of bubble screens off of them. They don't have bubble screen playmakers to run with the football after the catch. They got Juju Smith-Schuster out there catching bubble screens. That's not working. So O'Brien has faults. I do think when you watch them on film, you see I think a lot of people have come at me or brought up to me like spacing, and I don't see those issues as much as other people do.
Honestly, all I see is executing what's in front of them. That's really all I see. They either A, don't know how, can't comprehend, or B, they're not talented enough to do it. Yeah,
I don't see like in the passing game, like I mentioned the run game schematic stuff that I hate, like that I think is crap. Okay, but I think the passing offense is well schemed and sound. I think the spacing is sound. I think how they get to things is creative and sound. But they don't win one-on-one.
No.
They can't get off of man coverage. They do hit plays against zone because O'Brien will scheme them open against zone, but it's not consistent because they don't have good players. And they can't get off man. That's the bottom line. A coach told me once that coaches win against zone coverage, players win against man coverage. If you're a good offensive coach and other teams are playing zone against you, you
need to be acing it.
You got to figure out ways to get guys open against zone.
Right.
If you're getting a lot of man-to-man, that's on Devontae Parker, that's on Kendrick Bourne, that's on Hunter Henry to get open.
And they're not doing it.
Yeah.
And they're having trouble doing it.
Yeah, and it's a lot. It's a lot of different things that are going wrong. The offensive line we've talked about ad nauseum, and I think I give you credit because on PU I try to bring up the offensive line, and sometimes they don't want
but
I don't got time for that.
It's the blocking. The entire struggle of the offense is centered around the underperformance or non-performance on the offensive front.
Yeah, I agree.
There's no doubt about it. It starts with the quarterback. It starts with the running game. It even, assists with the receivers being able to run their routes. If they can't block, what have you got?
Yeah, no, the offensive line has been abysmal, and you start to look at it. Okay, let's do it. Let's point some fingers at some people. That my 2 fingers, if I have right now, one of them is pointed at Adrian Clem.
Yep.
What the hell are you doing?
Yep.
What are you doing?
Yep.
Because right now, I see no improvement. I see no development of younger players.
Correct.
I see the same mistakes happening
over and
I
over
see
again.
Poor fundamentals, poor pad level, poor hand placement, poor footwork. I see a guy like Antonio Maffi, who I think has talent. I think he has ability. I think he has a chance in this league
He's lost right now.
to be a good player.
He's lost.
He completely does not know how to pick up a stunt.
He's overwhelmed.
He doesn't know how to pick up a stunt.
He's thinking way too much. He's not playing ball.
A simple T&E. Like,
And you know how we fixed guys who got confused too much? We said, we're going to just run behind you, big fella.
Yeah.
Knock the guy in front of you, knock the snot out of him.
Yeah.
And that's how we fixed the problem.
Yeah, I like Antonio Maffi's talent. I like his ability. I think he's got potential in this league, like I said, to be a starting guard in the NFL. He has not improved. He has not shown any signs of improvement.
Cole Strange has regressed.
Cole Strange I can't even get started on that right now. Cole Strange.
Mike Onwenu is a disappointment. A lot of that is injury related.
Yeah.
But he's not performing either when he's out there.
Yeah, these guys are not getting any better. I don't think the fundamental coaching, I don't think is very good. Like I was mentioning, pad level, hand placement, things like that. So I'm pointing a big finger at Adrian Clem at this point.
Right tackle?
At this point, I look at Adrian Clem, and I think that they'll excuse it because of injuries and things like that. If there's somebody that can come in to help him,
they need to find him.
Whether it's,
Could this team benefit from having Dante come back for, I don't know, a month just to sort of consult?
Possibly. I think that, I don't want to, I think that Dante's more involved still than people necessarily realize.
I agree.
He knows a lot more about this roster and about this team and about the individual players for me to believe that he has no involvement whatsoever.
Yeah. Well, this is not a problem we're going to fix, immediately.
Nope.
It's not a
good
problem.
luck to him.
Not a problem we're going to fix maybe even long term. It is going to be a good luck situation. We'll see how it continues to play out. As I'm looking right now on X, Bill Belichick is trending. It's not Fire Bill anymore. It's just Bill Belichick. But nevertheless, I think that'll continue to be a subject. And in another 2 or 3 weeks, if this team continues to lose, all bets are off the table. And something that we thought would never, ever happen, I don't know how Mr. Kraft would have another choice.
Yeah, I mean, the in-season firings on the offensive staff and obviously with the head coach are on the table. The last one I just didn't get a chance to give my rant on, Troy Brown.
Yeah, that's another one besides Adrian Clem.
Because Adrian Clem,
at
least you can look at Adrian Clem and say, you just got here, you're handed kind of a pile of garbage, frankly, and you're trying to make water out of wine or wine out of water or whatever.
Chicken salad, a chicken bleep.
Yeah, that's a better one. Yeah. Troy, this is multiple years now with Troy Brown. That receivers are not running the right routes, aren't getting open, aren't developing.
We're too jaded with Troy Brown because of his, time as a player here.
We got to start looking at the receivers and the coach that's coaching the receivers, because the lack of development, the lack of sync, the lack of timing with the routes, the lack of spacing, the lack of detail.
Right.
All this stuff is his job.
Yeah, that is absolutely his job. Ev, thanks. We can do a ton more, which we will, but appreciate it today. Thank you. Patriots fans, if you want to see Toyota's best offers, including those not seen on TV, go to buyatoyota.com. It's Toyota's official website for deals from the official vehicle of the New England Patriots. Toyota, let's go places. Evan Lazar at EZ Lazar on X. Evan, of course, is the primary writer on Patriots.com and obviously hosts the Catch 22 podcast here on Patriots.com radio. Also coming up here in just a couple of seconds, Jason Horowitz, who's the play-by-play voice of the Vegas Raiders, will join us. Andy Hart from WEEI and WEEI.com and former member of Patriots Unfiltered will join us. Russell Baxter, the pro football guru himself, will go around NFL Week 6 here in just a few minutes. So I did mention, of course, that we do need to figure out a way to talk a little bit of football rather than what if today. Jason Horowitz, again, the radio voice of the Vegas Raiders, kind enough to join us. And Jason, John Rook here in Foxborough, thanks a lot for taking the time today.
You think I talk football? I want to go back. I want to go back to having the conversation about what's trending for you, because for me it's Dave Franklin. and then world events. So I think we have different. Not that should be surprising. And then the other thing is, just listening to you guys, are we positive with the receivers that it's just not that they're not good?
No.
Is it? Because there's always that.
Well, we know that. We have a sneaky feeling here that they're just not very good. I kind of knew that when they drafted Tyquan Thornton a couple of years ago, and for all of the speed that the young man has, he reminds me of a phrase that my basketball coach once told me years ago. Young man, when you turn sideways, you disappear. He's just too thin and too fragile to play the game. And if you can't get open and you're thin and you're fragile, do you really have a future in this business? I say, no, sir, you don't. Yeah. And I think I think it starts with that. And then, Devontae Parker, he doesn't have what he once had. He's been relegated to just a jump ball type of receiver, and they can't even get a jump ball to him anymore. The only thing that really seems to be working in New England's pass arsenal right now is scheming the tight ends open. Because both Hunter Henry and Mike Gesicki could catch the ball. Pharaoh Brown, hell, he scored the last Patriots touchdown 2 weeks ago.
That's right.
So I mean,
it was 50-some yards out, whatever it was.
Yes, exactly. It's kind of like, who the hell's that's running down the field? I've never seen him before in my life, and he just scored a touchdown. Listen, there are a lot of problems here. They're certainly not the Raiders' issue, because the Raiders, I know, as well as you know, have their own issues. And the first one I got to throw out to you here, Jason, is how safe is Josh McDaniels right about now? Because obviously he's near and sort of dear, I think, to people around here because of the time and the effort and the good teams that he helped coach here in New England in the past. But they're so heavy a New England and Las Vegas connection here because of the coaches, the scouts, the players even on your roster. So how is that being, received right about now through a 2-3 start?
Well, I'd say, anyone who watched the videos that were going viral against the Chargers, saw how fans feel about it with regards to, Mark Davis, the owner, and Josh McDaniels, and Mark Davis's response to that. And certainly there were comments before the start of the season that they said, hey, they're not going to measure this year by wins and losses, which is hard for a fan base to hear. Yeah. After a 6-11 season where 13 games were one-score games and 15 games were decided in the final 2 or 3 minutes of the game. So 6-11 was very close to being 10-7 or 11-6, and so that's very hard for a fan base to hear. And you turn things over to Jimmy Garoppolo, who in his career is, I know he hasn't necessarily had the same level of national approval or all of those things, but one of the things he has done very well is take care of the football. And that has not been the case in the 4 games that he's played this year. So you've got all those things going on right now. And with regards to Josh McDaniels, he's always been thought of a guy that has so much ability to coach offense and get the most out of an offense. But the Raiders at this moment are the only team in the NFL that has yet to score 20 points. Yeah. So I would say on the positive of that, since 2010, the other 4 teams who haven't scored 20 points through the first 5 games of the year, they were all 0-5. Yeah. So the fact that the Raiders are 2-3 really speaks to the fact of how much Max Crosby deserves the attention of maybe being the best defensive player in the NFL. And then also the fact that this group that has been talked about as Max Crosby and a bunch of other guys might just be better than that.
Well, I watched the Green Bay game the other night, like I'm sure a lot of people did, and I know obviously you were. Yeah, I know you watched it too. You were right there, front and center, and so I actually thought this doesn't look like a bad football team to me. That was the first, the overall impression I got, and it looks to me like Josh. And maybe I'm just oversimplifying it, but I'd like for you to provide a little perspective here. It looks like Josh is simply he's planted seeds and he's waiting for the product to grow. I guess the question and the analogy that I'll utilize here is, how's the fertilizer he's using? Yeah,
I think the fertilizer is better than it looked. It's better than it smells. The waft that's coming off from is not quite as good as it should be. Because, I think when you put an offense out there, and I know Devontae Adams got a shoulder injury that happened against the Chargers, but he's fought through it, and he's going to keep playing. When you put an offense out there that's got Devontae Adams, Josh Jacobs, Jacoby Myers, who has looked great. I'm sure all Patriots fans would love to have him back.
Oh my
he
God,
has looked unbelievable. Week 1.
Hey, would you take him back for a sack of potatoes and a wad of bubble gum? I mean, because that's about all we got. Number one, and number two,
Well,
there are Patriots fans here, and I'm glad you brought that up, Jason, because that's the other major mistake that seems to be trending on local, X around here as well. Almost said Twitter. I'm trying to, be a good Elon Musk, supporter here, even though I probably shouldn't
sure
be.
You want to be that?
No, not really.
Be that.
No, I'm not really. No, I don't really want to be that. But I'm just trying to play along here. I'm just trying to get along with everybody, right? That's the other misstep that the Patriots have taken. They are like, we should never have gotten rid of Jacoby Myers because he was Mac Jones's binky. And
you said binky.
Well, that's what he was, right?
We call them stuffies and lovies in our house.
Stuffies and lovies.
All right, the thing that makes you feel good. Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's what you need. We have 3 little kids. It's what you need when you need something to hold. 100%.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Need my binky.
And Jacoby's been such a good teammate already, and the guys love him, and you get all that stuff. And I can't speak to what he was in New England, and from my only experience with him, we all remember what happened at the end of the game in December last year to Legion Stadium. So
yeah, he was the one that instigated it all, right? Yeah, so
that's
sure.
right. Yeah, he's the one that threw it to Chandler Jones.
Mm-hmm.
But back to your point about how is the talent, Josh Jacobs last year, and frankly, like, he doesn't go down with the first person. The difference was last year for some reason. He was getting 1.5 yards, 2 yards before he was touched. This year, I haven't looked at it after week 5, but after week 4, he was being hit 0.1 yards after the line of scrimmage. Like the offensive line is not blocking well enough to get the push, and it's not just on them. Lincoln Kennedy, my analyst, is obviously a former Pro Bowl right tackle, so he's focused on this. But he has consistently pointed out the tight ends and the wide receivers' inability to dig out the safeties, to get that block. He pointed to Jacoby Myers the other night, who Jimmy Garoppolo sent him in motion. They ran a play to the left, and instead of Jacoby stopping at the line to block the safety, and I'm blanking on who it was because Darnell Savage had gotten hurt, but he kept going in motion beyond, and there was no one to block the safety.
Yeah.
And I think that something within that is what's missing, because if they give Josh any space, and even if they don't give him a ton, but he's going to get 5-6 yards of carry, and then he's going to break one for 40.
Right. I think you just hit on.
Do that.
I think you just hit on, Jason, the absolute reason why the Patriots decided to offer Juju Smith-Schuster over Jacoby Myers, because one of the problems problems Jacoby had was blocking, and recognizing who to block, and they didn't know if it was his recognition or if he was just shying away from it or whatever he was doing. But they just decided, look, let's just take the guy who we think has more talent overall. And that may very well be the case. But the problem is the talent that they brought in is broken.
Yeah.
He's broken. Juju doesn't have it anymore. He's got 0 left. And that's why the Patriots and Bill Belichick, part of the reason why they're being exhoriated by the public right now, because of the decision they made when it came to Smith-Schuster versus Jacoby Myers.
Yeah. Well, and look, the offensive line, you guys have had a ton of injuries here early in the season. Losing Matt Judon and what he brings to the table, and Christian Gonzalez, who looked like he was going to be a really good rookie season.
Yeah.
Like those two hurt too.
Yeah, they hurt a lot. You're right.
Yeah, and both of all the Joneses you have in the defensive backfield, 2 are out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
correct. Only half
so
the Jones boys are available. Yep.
Yeah. So you got all that going on too.
There's a lot going on, and so for the Patriots, I think to put up an honest effort against the Raiders, this Sunday, will require not only the Patriots probably not shooting themselves in the foot, which they have done quite well, over the first 5 weeks of the season, but also the Raiders to come back to the pack a little bit, because I'm looking at your roster up and down, and not only am I seeing, especially on your depth chart here, not only am I seeing names that I certainly know and recognize, but I'm thinking, hey, that guy's pretty good. Hey, that guy's pretty good. Hey, that guy's pretty good. So why is this team 2-3 as opposed to not being a little bit better?
Oh, that's simple. 2-3 because of turnovers and because of inopportune penalties.
Okay. Sounds just like the Patriots.
Yeah, and but the difference is with the exception of Buffalo, we had the Raiders very rarely in the last 2 years in my time with the organization have blown out, and you could point to that, in any close game. Hey, if we did this differently, if we do that differently, the Chargers game is a good example. If you hold Justin Herbert to 160 yards passing, and 40 of those came on the last throw, that was a 3rd and 8 that they converted to end the game.
Yeah.
You're thinking you're going to win that football game.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
But opening drive, Max Crosby gets a sack fumble. It would have forced the Chargers to kick a 46-yard field goal. I don't know if they make it or not.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, David Long lines up offsides. It gives the Chargers a first down. So instead of kicking for 3, they get 7. Later in the game, Jerry Tillery gives the Chargers an easy 15 yards on a late hit out of bounds. He gets ejected from the game. Chargers go down and score. Trayvon Merrick drops an interception in the end zone. Now, in all fairness to Trayvon, he's playing with a club on his hand. And I don't know that he can make that with one hand. But if he does come down with that interception, which he probably should have, that's no points. Instead, the Chargers get 3. So now that's 7 points right there on 2 plays, and they lose by 7.
Yeah.
Not to mention the Aiden O'Connell, sacked 6 times by one guy.
Yeah, right.
And so, you throw penalties, you throw turnovers into the conversation, and the offensive line play hasn't been good enough. See, those 3 things are, without a question, the reason why the Raiders are 2-3 and not 3-2 or 4-1.
Right. I'm going to flip over to on the defensive side of the ball, because I know that's where there's some things lacking, especially statistically, kind of like what has happened in New England, and mention to you first and foremost that one of my favorite players, because of his name, is in the middle of that defense in Divine Diablo.
Yeah.
First of all, I love his name. Second of all, it looks like he can play.
He can. And Divine got hurt last year. Jacksonville, I think, was game 7 or 8. But at the time that Divine got hurt, he was 7th or 8th in the NFL in tackles, and he might have been number 1 in the NFL in tackles per game, or up there. And so he was having a really good second season playing next to Denzel Perryman. Got hurt, and then was out for the rest of the year. He was given more responsibility in the offseason and put next to Robert Spillane, who they brought in from Pittsburgh, who, until the end of last year, never had been really a starter in this league.
Yep.
And Robert's a guy that is a thumper, a downhill player, but the difference is that the questions about him in pass coverage, well, those were fair, but he also then had 2 interceptions on Monday night against the Packers. One was, a great play where he dropped into coverage and Jordan Love never saw him, and the other was a deflected ball from Marcus Peters that he was in the right place, right time. But you got to make those plays, and he did.
No question.
Divine Diablo, the week 1 against Denver and then week 3 against Pittsburgh too, he was great in coverage, particularly near the line of scrimmage, covering backs out of the backfield. So, we still struggle with tight ends. You talked about tight ends in the beginning about what might work with Hunter Henry and Mike Gesicki, and maybe that plays a role coming up on Sunday afternoon. But yes, there's no question. That goes back to our defense as a whole, and it's what we said earlier. I think the national perception of the Raiders defense, which has not been very good for the past 15, 20 years, is that it's Max Crosby, who everybody knows at this point because he's highlighted all the time and deservedly so, and then a whole bunch of other guys. But I think the collection of those whole bunch of other guys have earned the right to win football games. They are not the reason the Raiders are losing this year. Whereas the last year, you would not have said that.
Yeah. All right, so how much then ultimately, how much more rope does Josh McDaniels have to work with here before, Mark Davis is forced to say, all right, maybe this isn't working out the way I planned? Because I know that Robert Kraft is thinking the same thing right now. The unthinkable, the unimaginable, the unconscionable thought that, here's a guy, for all that he's meant to the game of pro football, especially in New England, is not performing up to that level, and Mark Davis has brought in Josh McDaniels, giving him a lot of money, giving him what we thought would be plenty of time, and yet it's kind of sputtering to the start here. So how much more rope does he have left to work with?
I think think a good amount. I mean, I'm obviously not privy to any of that.
Yeah.
But I think a good amount. You know, there's a couple of caveats to that. You know, there was a lot of optimism about this year's draft class. You know, people really think Tyree Wilson is going to be really good, and you know, I don't know that it's fair to judge yet because he had the foot surgery, didn't even suit up until the end of August. But his impact on the field was going to be magnified when the Chandler Jones situation happened, and it just hasn't manifested itself yet. And you know, you need that out of your 7th overall pick. Michael Mayer, who a lot of people assumed was going to be a first-round tight end, and the Raiders almost traded up. Reports are that they were going to draft him in the first round, but they ended up trading up early in the second round. There hasn't been – now there's a lot of development, and they featured him early against the Packers, but it hasn't been a ton there either.
Right.
And Trey Tucker, who they surprised by taking in the third round, when they've given him the football, has made a big-time plays. He's got a 34-yard run at Buffalo. The other day he was an end around. He had like a 16-yard run on a first down. But they haven't been able to get him the football enough. And so you start throwing all those things together. They had another third-round pick in Byron Young, who they're trying to bring along. So you put all that together with some struggles on the offensive line and the close aspect of this, plus the offense that was inconsistent last year, but certainly not bottom of the pack in the NFL. And you say, okay, well, that has to change. And I think that's true. But the good thing is, you look at this team at 2-3, is that, hey, the defense is playing well enough to win. If the offense shows any sign of improvement over the next 4 or 5 weeks against the Patriots, the Bears, in Detroit, Monday Night Football might be a tough one, but, then come home for the Giants and the Jets in back-to-back weeks before going to Miami. And, like, if there's a sign of improvement from this offense, the way that the defense is playing, this is going to be a team that you're not going to be saying is 3-6. It's a team you're going to be saying is 5-3.
Yeah,
or whatever it might be.
Absolutely. And you mentioned, the play of the defense. Crosby was named AFC Defensive Player of the Week.
Saw that, yeah.
Right? So, I mean, you're stepping in the right direction. The defense basically, sealed the Packers off this week and won that game at the end. So, I mean, looks to me like
the defense has given up 1 touchdown in the last 6 quarters.
There you go.
And the other. The other, if you go back to the first half against the Chargers, they gave up an opening drive touchdown because of that penalty.
Mm-hmm.
But the other touchdown they gave up against the Chargers was because of a sack fumble where, LA was started, I think, at the 33-yard line of the Raiders. So, generally speaking, the defense has played well the last 2-3 weeks.
Yeah. Played very well, and that's a real challenge for a Patriots offense that is struggling to put any kind of semblance of a professional unit on the field right now. Jason Horowitz, who calls the games for the Las Vegas Raiders, joining us here inside the Playbook. Jason, thank you for a little bit of time this afternoon. It's greatly appreciated. Happy to hear that things are going well. You and I have kind of been ships that have passed in the night through our association previously with Westwood One. And I still do a podcast for Westwood One every now and then when it comes to basketball season. But I'm happy to hear that you're doing extraordinarily well. And hang in there, brother. See if you can get yourself a win.
I appreciate that, and I wish you best. And here's to a very friendly environment when Georgetown comes to Providence. Say hi to you and the Friars.
Right? Oh my God, I'm gonna wear a helmet that day.
Hey, again, outsider perspective, Providence should 1,000% be very, 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 very excited to see Ed Cooley. Understand that it's frustrating that he left, but what that man did for the dunk or whatever it's called now is should never be forgotten.
Oh no, I know. I absolutely agree with that one. I mean, the problem is that, he would have had a statue out in front of the workout facility along with Dave Gavitt and Joe Mulaney had he not left the way he did. His statue would have been right there next to him, but that's what most people are upset about.
But who wants a statue? I mean, come on.
Listen, when you're old like me, you want a statue because that way, the only thing that can bother you is the pigeon when it craps on it.
I feel old, and I just turned 40, so.
Oh, dude. I got socks that are 40.
Do they have a matching pair, or is it just one sock?
No, they match. They both got holes in them, but they match. Do I still wear them? Yep, I do. Whenever I wear socks, of course, and I don't like wearing socks. I try to be hip. I don't like to wear socks, and I realize that's the thing to do nowadays. But sometimes when you're slogging around on the snow here, that gets a little rough. So
fair,
yeah.
That's a fair point.
Thanks, Jason. Really appreciate the time. Good to visit with you.
Take care, John. Be well.
You got it. You too. Jason Horowitz, who calls the play-by-play local radio for the Las Vegas Raiders. I slipped a couple times and almost said Oakland. I did. I almost said Oakland. It's just habit, right? I mean, when you go back to the old AFL days like I do, gee, many Christmas. We were talking about perspective earlier with Evan, and I'm just like, wow, half. I have to think about it again. I've been here for half of the Patriots' existence, and it was the Oakland Raiders, and then the Los Angeles Raiders, and then the Oakland Raiders, and then the Vegas Raiders, and I'm just like, oh. We almost had the St. Louis Raiders or the Arizona Raiders at one time, or I don't know. Anyway, Jason, one of the good young announcers in the game today. Jason has done a lot of college basketball and college football on Westwood One. Still does a little bit, I think, for the network, but that's where our paths have kind of crossed and intersected over the last decade or so. And very talented young announcer. So I'm glad he's landed well. And, hey, it's got to be exciting, right? It's Las Vegas, for goodness sakes. I know there are a ton of Patriots fans that are going out for it. At least I from what I've heard and read social media and everything this week, that there are a lot of fans that have, decided that, hey, they want to make the trip to Vegas this week for the game, make it a vacation, what have you. I know there'll be a huge New England presence in Las Vegas. Of course, I don't think you could have picked a more expensive place in the NFL to go to than Vegas right now. Vegas, by the way, has the number one price ticket in the league. The overall number one average in terms of like a ticket or an average ticket price or a family of four and all that kind of, Vegas is at the top of the list. They're the most expensive out there. I don't know if that's I don't know if that's because, Mark Davis has dictated that, or if it's just a byproduct of the demand, or if it's just because Las Vegas, Nevada is just an expensive place to be. And again, my experience with Vegas is not tremendous. I've been there half a dozen times. I was there 4 years ago. It was right before the pandemic, so it would have been in 2019 was the last time I was in Vegas. Miss Robin and I went out and stayed in Vegas because we had never been down inside the Grand Canyon. And so, flown over the Grand Canyon thousands of times, wanted to go into it. So we did. And, but we stayed in Vegas and then took our trek, out there and had a great time. But Vegas, you got to learn that, unless you've never been there before, you really kind of want to stay away from the Strip. I mean, unless you're a big gambler and you like going to the shows, which I do. I like going to some shows. I like the concerts. That's fine. That's all good. And then, of course, I love the sports book like anybody else. I like going and just sitting at the, in the crowd there and watching all of the games because they got every game on imaginable. So it's pretty unbelievable. But at the same time, man, it's expensive. I guess I just didn't eat enough of those buffets, huh? While I'm playing the slots or playing blackjack or taking a whirl at the poker table or, whatever it may be, right? I don't know. 855-PATS-500. 855-PATS-500 is the toll-free telephone number. It's open and available to you. Andy Hart will join us here momentarily. Russell Baxter will join us at the bottom of hour number 2 as we go week 6 around the NFL. Bridgestone is the official tire of the New England Patriots and is proud to partner with Sullivan Tire, New England's headquarters for quality Bridgestone tires. Visit sullivantire.com to find a location near you. I really came into this day, gang, thinking about how to put all of this into some kind of reasonable, expectant perspective. Everybody wants to yell and scream at Bill. Everybody wants to yell and scream maybe even at Robert Kraft. Everybody wants to yell and scream at Mac Jones. Everybody wants to yell and scream at the coaches. Everybody wants to yell and scream at the players because they're not performing or they're not, doing what they're supposed to be doing. I think everybody wants to just yell and scream because the Patriots are 1-4 instead of, I don't know. What would have been reasonable? 2-3 right now? Yeah, probably. Maybe 3-2 if you were really lucky. And you're 1-4. And it's because we're used to something different. the current head coach, general manager, ownership, group has put us in this position where we are now upset, where we are now angry, where we now expect more. It's their own damn fault, because this is how we compete. Everybody competes to win. Everybody competes to be better than the other guy. Everybody competes for a chance to win a Lombardi trophy, and the Patriots have won 6 of those. No other franchise has won more, at least not yet. And it may be a while before we see another one around here at the present rate. So I think it's proper to always keep in mind where you've come from. And my career here in New England has now come full circle. Holy crap. When I started covering this team in 1989, no, it was actually fall of 88. Fall of 88 was the first year that I covered the New England Patriots after covering the Houston Oilers and the Dallas Cowboys prior to that. Patriots were middling. 1990 is when it bottomed out. Rod Rust, all that stuff. And then things started to slowly turn around when Bill Parcells, came on board. The mindset changed. And I saw it. People acted and reacted differently. And then he decided, well, I need to have a little more control, or at least I want to have the control that I was originally promised. And I think Mr. Kraft, and this is my own personal opinion speaking here, I think he probably realized that, maybe he does. But Mr. Kraft also went out and got what he was owed, and the Jets had to give him compensation for hiring him away. So all of that took place. You go out and you get Pete Carroll, and Pete Carroll wasn't a horrible coach. Certainly he's got longevity in this league. He hasn't done a bad job anywhere he's been. He didn't do a bad job here. But there was an aspiration for more. And it kind of leveled off, and it didn't look like it was getting any better. And I will tell you at the time, based upon my recollection, at the time, I'm not sure that there was locker room buy-in to what Pete Carroll was doing. And so you make the fundamental change, going the route that you really wanted to go when you lost Bill Parcells, or shall I say he took off, and you hire Bill Belichick. And obviously that decision has proven to be brilliant in many different ways. You've got, Super Bowl appearances. You've got 6 Lombardi trophies. You put a region on the map. You've made people feel better about themselves. You've created Hall of Fame football careers. I mean, it's phenomenal. And I will be, as well as I think all Patriots fans should be, grateful for what we've seen. So that's why I feel a little reluctant to call somebody out on the carpet for doing a bad job. I mean, I'm one of those that feels like, hell, they need to put a statue of the guy up out front. If you want a statue to, and a pigeon to crap on your head, fine. That's what a statue is good for. But I also know that this is a business, and I also know you're in the business of winning. And when you stop winning, no matter what you've done before, in sports, it's always been, what have you done for me lately? Not what you did for me a year ago, not what you did for me 10 years ago. What are you doing for me now? And many good people in sports, and I just use the blanket umbrella sports because I want to speak both professionally and even collegiately. That's been my experience as someone who has covered sports at a professional level and as at a collegiate level for 45 years. And, damn, I'm old. So here's the thing. There's a common thread through it all. Win. It's, I will borrow the phrase, it's trite, it's cliche, it's ridiculous, but I will borrow the phrase from the late, great Raiders owner and coach Al Davis. Just win, baby. And all of the rest takes care of itself. And so that's where we are with these New England Patriots. And right now, it's not only can they not win, they can't even score a point. I mean, 69 unanswered points that this team has allowed. And again, I realize you just lost your two best defensive players, and the offense has, well, we know what the offense has. It has fungus growing between its toes. It's got something. All right, bring in the one and only Jumbo, Andy Hart, formerly of Patriots Unfiltered, now, of course, covering the Patriots and other items for WEEI and WEEI.com. Big Head, what's happening, dude?
So what I took from that is you're old.
Well, that's why I had to preface that by saying, yeah, I just called my own butt out right here on the carpet. But you know what? I feel like, okay, maybe I am a little bit older than some people's proper taste. But what I can provide is a little bit of perspective because I've been here through all of it. I've seen it. I know what the attitude is like. I know what the prevailing feeling is like within, the public and the media and all of the above. And I even though I think we all are sort of in agreement now, something's got to get done here. But how do you pull the trigger on unprecedented Hall of Fame, all-world caliber success and say, thanks, we've seen enough? I don't know how you do that.
Well, my feeling is that through the season, Bill controls it. That I just can't envision a world where Robert Kraft fires Bill Belichick midseason. I don't think it's going to get much worse than it's gotten the last couple of weeks, where you get beat 72-3. In all likelihood, things are going to look a little bit better, marginally better in the coming weeks. Now, have I reached the point where I think there's a chance Bill Belichick is on the way out? Yeah. I've reached the point where I think I would be surprised if he's the head coach of this football team next year. And, it's strange to see because we're just such creatures of habit. I don't like change. And that's, he's so great. And it's what we know as the Patriots. But Tom Brady moved on. Bill Belichick will too. It's this, you're talking about historically, this is the natural course of events in a lot of ways. The Hall of Fame quarterback moves on. The Hall of Fame coach doesn't look quite as great. And eventually he moves on or the team moves on from him, whether your name is Noel or Landry or Shula, whatever it may be.
And it happened to all of them, Andy. And again, I'm glad you brought that up because every great coach, name one, left ugly.
Right. And that's just – part of me wants to say unfortunate reality, but it's just life. It's sort of like the normal course we all go through when we get old and you realize, I can't do things I used to. And, you have limitations. And that's why I don't think it's necessarily mean or personal to say, yeah, maybe Bill's lost his fastball. Maybe the game has changed and he has not evolved with it, whatever it may be. I don't think there's any shame in him stinking at 71 as a head coach or 72. And it doesn't mean he wasn't the greatest of all time when he was 62, right? Those are two separate time periods in his career with different events and circumstances.
Right,
so,
right.
But it is, in the midst of it, it's weird to live. And the other thing is, once it ends, whether he retires or Robert fires him or he gets traded or whatever the various exit strategies may be, in a couple years, he just goes back to being the greatest Patriots coach of all time, the guy who won 6 Super Bowls, the guy who will get a statue next to Tom Brady's and whatever, the ring road will be named after him. We will remember the greatness, not however it ended. That will fade very quickly, I think.
Yeah, and I would tend to agree with that. But I think there's a part of the reason why some, and I'll include myself in this circle, okay? There's a part of the reason why some are feeling a little more rotten than maybe we really should, trying to keep this in perspective, because we see him so close to immortality. And I'm of the opinion, like you, I'll be surprised if he's here next year. And I'd be doubly surprised if he beat Shula's record now. And I would say a month ago, he's going to get the record. And a month ago, he'll be here as long as he wants to be here. That's how quickly things have changed. And it's startling.
It is. And I would say it's equally as startling with the quarterback. And obviously that's tied into Bill Belichick, because I can remember after the opener, and I know they lost, and it was moral victory Monday and all that crap.
Yeah, right.
But in the second quarter against the Eagles, I thought it was as well as Mac Jones had ever played in a Patriots uniform. And then a month later in Dallas, I thought it was as poorly as he's ever played in the second quarter against the Cowboys when he's throwing pick sixes and fumbling. And it's like, how did we get here? How did it change so quickly? And the bottom fell out. He melted down. And in doing so, that alters everything. If Mac were a franchise quarterback like I think Robert Kraft hoped and Bill Belichick hoped, then Bill Belichick has legs and longevity, and he's pursuing a record and all of those things. But it's hard if Mac is not the guy, and I think most people have decided Mac is not the guy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's hard to say you're going to give your soon-to-be 72-year-old head coach and GM the chance to pick a new guy to rebuild. Is this a 3-year plan, a 5-year plan? It just, the timeline doesn't marry up to where Bill's at in his career, and I think that's the reality. Mac's downfall is Belichick's downfall too.
Yeah, and Evan just mentioned a little bit earlier on the show before you joined us, Andy, that if you're really going to lay blame at someone's feet, Bill Belichick and this coaching staff have ruined Mac Jones. He doesn't really see that Mac's got a chance to recover here, maybe even ever. And I'm like, wow, that's stepping out. But it's hard to argue against that right now because he doesn't appear to be the same quarterback, anywhere near the same quarterback that he was even 2 years ago as a rookie.
Nope, he's broken. And I actually recorded
that's the phrase he used. He said Mac is broken.
Absolutely. And I recorded a podcast today with Paul Perillo, and I used to believe worst case scenario for Mac was he could have a 12 to 15-year career as a journeyman backup, even if he doesn't make it as a starter. Now, the way things have bottomed out, the way he's looked the last 2 weeks, I don't think he's stable enough to be that Brian Hoyer 12-year backup. And it's miraculous that the floor on him has fallen through to the level it has. I thought he was a high floor, low ceiling kind of guy when he entered the league, and now the bottom has fallen out for him. And, some of that has to be coaching and 3 offensive coordinators in 3 years, the middle one not even being an offensive coordinator. And, we all know the story and everything that's gone into it. And that, again, is part of they're connected. You can't separate the two. The end of Belichick and the end of Jones go hand in hand because if Jones was better, then I think Belichick would have a longer tenure playing out here.
Yeah. All right. So I guess, it's one thing to try to, make some sense out of this craziness that's going on. But at the same time, as we said, there are still, you played 5 games. That means you've got 12 more left to play. And, do you make chicken salad out of chicken feathers? Do you just sit here and wallow in the muck and mud? What do you do? And it has to start this week against a Raider team that, certainly, they look pretty good defensively on Monday night against the Packers, but we know they've had their issues thus far. Is it time to pick on an old friend and Josh McDaniels and see if you can figure out a way to at least get incrementally better?
That's the hope, right? I thought last week you were facing a team in the Saints that was sort of in that similar middle-of-the-road pack of the NFL.
Yep.
They were facing their own questions in New Orleans. Is Pete Carmichael not a good play caller? Should he be fired? Why isn't the offense better? And they got right against you, right? You suddenly became that team where people circle you and say, oh, that's the get-right game. Let's go play the Patriots. We'll feel better about ourselves. And
yeah.
For you, I think you are hoping that the Raiders, a mediocre team, that now they turned the ball over, as you said. Jordan Love was giving them the ball. Mac's been giving everybody the ball. Maybe that's a bad combo, and Max Crosby can make any offensive line look bad, never mind Verdarian Lowe or whoever. So, there are no cakewalks. There are no penciled-in victories anymore for where this team is, but I think you can sell yourself on, are they capable of going to Las Vegas and beating the Raiders? Absolutely. The Raiders are not a great football team right now, but the first thing starts with, it's almost regardless of the opponent, are you going to give the other team the ball? Are you going to dig a hole? Are you going to start slow? This is about the Patriots as much as anybody else. Forget the opponent. It's the old Belichick. I just posted a column. How many times has Belichick told us, before you can win, you have to not lose? Well, they haven't gotten past that step.
No, they're not past the not losing yet. No, they haven't figured that part out yet. And that's, to me, that's almost, Andy, that's almost at the top of the issues here when it comes to considering Bill has lost his fastball. Because in all honesty, we know what it was like the previous 20 years here. He was a stickler for detail. And, if you fumbled the ball, your butt was benched. We've even seen that earlier this year. And then now they can't afford, they keep shooting themselves in the foot, and they don't have anybody else to put in the game. So he's got no choice but to play some of those guys who don't belong in the game. And it seems like they've backtracked on the previous thought process of, hey, we're not going to beat ourselves here. You do wrong, you come out, you sit, you're in my doghouse until you figure it out.
Yeah, I think some of that, I think they've been a desperate football team, quite frankly, over the last year plus, because they lack talent. They're not an overly talented team, so they, out of desperation, have had to invest and stick with certain guys. Like, to me, Trent Brown is the poster child. I would have cut him this summer whenever he wasn't on the field, because I think he's always upset about something. At best, sometimes. Is he talented when he's locked in? Of course he is. He's one of the best linemen in football, probably, when he wants to be. The problem is he rarely wants to be. But they needed him because he's their best lineman, and they don't have right tackles, never mind left tackles, and they gave him a little pay bump. And, you know, when you roll around with dogs, you get fleas kind of thing. Well, they get a lot of fleas now throughout this roster, and you're right. They can't afford to stick to their mantras and morals and foundational tenets because, well, if you got a little bit of talent, I got to get you on the field. We don't really have a lot of guys with talent right now. And that's just the way it's played out, and it has not played out well for them.
And you can't figure out the talent part until you come back around again to the next offseason when you got a chance to figure it out. And I know that, you know, the Patriots have more cap space than anybody else next year, and the ceiling is going to rise on the salary cap. And so the Patriots are in position, at the very least, to make gains in that regard, much like they did a couple of years ago. But who right now is confident that they can make the right decisions based on what they've done the last couple of years in making decisions?
Yeah, can they make the right ones? Who's making it? Because that goes in hand with our Belichick, question. If he's gone, is it Matt Groh and Gerard Mayo? Is it clean house and you bring in some hotshot GM you like and he hires a coach? I mean, those are the big picture questions we're on. But I know just from a here and now perspective, reading my social media, taking calls on our post-game show on WEEI and all that, not a lot of fans have a lot of faith of, if you give Bill a top 5 pick and $100 million, he'll turn this around. You get a lot of pot shot jokes. Oh, he'll trade down and get 3 guards in the 3rd round and blah, blah, like some of that stuff. And it's warranted because the personnel got bad under his leadership. Like, there's been mistakes in free agency. There's been mistakes in the draft. Now, where Matt Groh fits into that, how much this collaborative we've been sold in recent years includes Matt Groh, and how much praise and or blame does he deserve, I don't know. But Bill Belichick is the guy who, sits atop the depth chart in terms of the football operation in Foxborough. And the way they've drafted and spent money, maybe it's improved in some areas, but there's still a lot of swings and misses. And you're right. I don't know that you have a lot of faith that they can properly spend $100 million in cap space and a top 5 pick. Yeah,
that's kind of at the root of the problem right now. I mean, the current malaise on the field is one thing, but when you realize that, it's systemic because of what led into this through some of the poor choices that were made and poor decisions that were made in creating this roster to begin with, it's mind-boggling. I mean, it's almost overwhelming to really even consider. And so now you're left with, all right, how do you clean up the mess? And, and you probably heard, Mr. Kraft and Jonathan Kraft even say this before, that, Bill is going to be here as long as Bill wants to be here. They've said that privately. They've said that publicly. They've said that everywhere. Whenever the subject has come up, they just haven't said anything lately because I don't blame them. Why would they? And now, privately, they've got to be thinking, woo, this is a business matter.
Right.
This is a business decision. We got a business to run here. This is the second, most valuable NFL franchise. This is one of the top 5, actually, I think now top 3 valuable franchises on the planet. The planet, and so we're counting, European soccer as well. So, here's the thing: when you have that kind of an asset, aren't you going to protect it? Aren't you going to see that it doesn't lose money? Aren't you going to see that it doesn't lose stature? Aren't you going to see that it continues to grow rather than regress and lose money and whatever stock fund you're sinking it into? Of course you are. If you're a businessman like the Krafts, whose own worth, let's remember, the bottom line number is when they bought this team, And they bought the property, and they bought, old, Sullivan Stadium and all that kind of Foxborough Stadium when it was here. Okay, they paid roughly $130 million. Okay, for it back in 1992-ish. Okay, it's now worth over $7 billion on the latest Forbes evaluation. So these guys know what to do to build a business. They did it with their paper company, and they've done it with all the other things that they do. They've certainly done it in pro football. And that alone is why, Mr. Kraft's, not being in the Hall of Fame is a puzzler to me. But that's another story, another argument for another day. They're going to protect their assets based on the history of them being business owners.
And fans. I would roll that in there. Like, I know some people like to sort of make fun of Mr. Kraft when he talks about sitting on the metal benches at Foxborough Stadium, but when you blend together a guy who I truly believe is a passionate fan of the Patriots with a guy who I truly believe is I don't know if cutthroat is the right word, but a very smart, aggressive businessman, and he sees his team that is both his dream asset and his business fading, that's going to motivate him to make tough decisions or to do aggressive things. And, he has to sit in Jerry Jones Stadium, who's kind of his frenemy competition in the NFL, watch his team get whooped. Then he comes home, faces a lesser team, watches his team get whooped, watches fans leaving early. And I would argue, I always do the jersey test, John. If you're going to buy a jersey of a New England Patriot player right now, who you buying? I can really think of one. Christian Gonzalez, right?
Okay, that's fair.
Other than that, I mean, if you like Judon, you have him, but he's getting a little older and he probably won't be here long. Mac Jones, probably gone. To me, that's sort of the symbol of a hot current team. Like, I look at Bears games for so long. You know what you'd see? Mike Singletary and Walter Payton in the crowd.
Oh, yeah.
They were living off history because they never really kept developing stars and success. And that's where the Patriots are. I think they have a little bit of a marketing / support problem right now because, I did a career day at a middle school and talking to probably 30 kids, eighth graders, I think. I said, who watched the Patriots game in Dallas? 2 hands raised.
Wow.
2 hands in a middle school classroom. And and these are kids that are interested in sports journalism. That's why they signed up for my little chat.
Wow.
And they didn't watch the game. And to me, that's alarming because that's your next couple generations of fans and people that are spending money on your product, your games, your merchandise. So it's an interesting time period, not only on the field, but from where is the business going? Where is the support going? And, you can only market a really big television screen and a really big lighthouse for so long. You got to have some Gronks and Brady's and Edelmans and star players out there. And that's as important as anything. Get some, everybody says, Caleb Williams, you need a quarterback. You do on the field. I think you also need a star to drive some attendance, to drive some support for this team, to get people excited again.
Yeah, you do. 100%. 100%. By the way, I think the tower and the big scoreboard are cool, but,
Awesome.
But
awesome.
they really are. I mean, it's a tremendous amenity for anybody that comes out to the stadium. But are people going to spend? I was making the remark to Miss Robin on the way out of the parking lot on Sunday. I'm thinking, these people, their discretionary income is to come out here and do what they do when others might take a European vacation, or they might, go to Lake Winnipesaukee for the summer, or they, gonna, spend, traveling across country, whatever they can do. These people spend their discretionary income on football and the experience of coming to Gillette, 8 to 10 times a year, and all of the trimmings that go with it. And when the attractiveness of that starts to dissipate, they're going to start to think, like most smart people will think, where is my money better spent?
Yep.
And I'm like, wow, does this franchise really want to go? I mean, the football fortunes, we all know, before you can really build back, and it's the nature of professional sports that when you get to be at a certain level, you've got the salary cap era, in place now. It's the nature of pro sports. Once you get up on top, you cannot sustain it for very long. You are hamstrung by the rules and regulations to which everybody has to live by, because most of the leagues, with one notable exception, largely exist to make things as even as possible for everyone, so we don't have to worry so much about market size and major markets and things like that. Okay, so if that's the case, then everybody has to expect to fall. And, before too long, because you just can't afford to pay these salaries, for very long, and you're on the books for all of it. And so you can't buy your way into a championship. Well, here's the thing. The Patriots are remarkable to me in the way that they maintained a sense of competitiveness over a 20-plus year period. That may be unmatched in NFL history, and that's with all due respect to the current Kansas City Chiefs or even the coming San Francisco 49ers, because they looked pretty good to me, too, the other night. But the Patriots, the fact what they've done is for that long, they never sunk to rock bottom. We don't know what rock bottom looks like, and I'm thinking that this might be it, because the last 2 or 3 years, Andy, they've just sort of they just kind of pushed it forward and pushed it forward and pushed it forward without really sinking. I think that we finally found rock bottom, and the question is now, who is qualified best at this stage of the game to rebuild?
Right, and I do think the longevity actually. Now, people say Patriots fans are spoiled because of the winning, and that's true. Absolutely. You were spoiled with Belichick and Brady and 9 Super Bowls, but you were also spoiled that you never had any down years in between. You didn't have the occasional, something happened, and all of a sudden you only win 6 games. You never bottomed out. And people told them this isn't sustainable, and yet for 20 years they sustained it. And I think that made people – well, you've been telling me for 20 years it's not sustainable, so clearly you were wrong. It is sustainable.
Sure.
And now it's like, oh, this is what you were talking about that should have happened 8, 10, 12, 15 years ago.
Right.
And I laughed at you every time because they kept winning. Well, now it has caught up to them. And now you are looking like you're headed towards some sort of whatever the bottoming out is going to be, wherever that. And again, it may be the best thing. They may need it. Everybody talks about it in the NBA. If you're in that middle where you're not at the top of the lottery, but you're not in the playoffs, you can just be in a washing machine. You get tumbled over year after year of mediocre draft picks, mediocre talent. You can't get your star. And I think that's where the Patriots have been spinning their wheels up a little bit the last couple of years. And I think it's fair to say, well, if you get a top 5 pick, could that be the springboard toward turning it around?
Yes, I think that's why most people usually have to sink to the bottom, because then they're the ones that pick at the top. They have the first crack at, the younger guys that you can find, and you got to make sure that when you go after the younger guy, and this is also, good for free agency as well, you got to make sure that you hit, you got to bat 1,000 or at least bat, 750, I would think. Get, 2 or 3 out of 4. Because that's the only way you can pull yourself out of the morass down at the bottom. And the Patriots, when they've been able to pick, middling, have failed. Yep. They've missed.
And that's why I go back to Richard Seymour. Everybody says Tom Brady was the greatest draft pick the Patriots ever made. I say no. I say you got a little lucky. He's the greatest player. He was the most important figure. But the greatest draft pick for me was Richard Seymour. Mm-hmm. You're coming off 5-11. Mm-hmm. You have the 6th pick in the draft. You have to hit that. And he hit it out of the park. He drafted a Hall of Fame foundational defensive lineman.
Correct.
You can't miss on that. And if this keeps trending towards where it's trending, whoever the person making the pick is has to hit on it. You can't blow the 4th, 5th, 6th pick in the draft, especially for a team like this who hasn't had a lot of those. That needs to be the foundation of the next era of Patriot, whether it's a quarterback or not. It needs to be the foundation of the next era of Patriot football. And, maybe we're getting ahead of ourselves. Maybe they got a 5-game winning streak coming, and maybe we're going to look back and say, wow, they're 6-4, and they're right back in this.
Hey, Andy.
But
Andy.
Weird to be talking about it.
Andy, hey, maybe pigs will fly, too.
Hey, I'm being optimistic. You know me, always the optimist.
Oh, my God, the world's going to come to an end. Hey, I really appreciate the chat, buddy. Thank you. It's really good to sit here and just, talk philosophically as well as a little football with you. So it's greatly appreciated. Look forward to seeing your stuff again soon.
Thanks, man. Anytime. Give me a call.
You got it. Will do. It's Andy Hart. Of course, Andy cut his teeth right here on Patriots.com. Patriots Unfiltered, Patriots Football Weekly before that. and now doing his thing for WEEI and WEEI.com. All right, 855-PATS-500. I realize that, we've sort of dominated the conversation today, and I apologize for that. I've got to get to a couple of emails, and then we're going to also bring Russell in here. But, frankly, I think that, there's, I don't sense that too many people feel differently. If you do, I'd love to hear from you. I mean, what should the Patriots do with Bill? And I realize I'm asking a kind of a loaded question here, and we've got, about 30 minutes left of the show today. So I don't want to drive, Marine nuts here over the last half hour of the show when we, go around the league with Russell. But at the same time, I'm just curious what you would do. I mean, you really got to give this some thought. I think it's too easy to say, he's out, he's got to go. The game has passed him by. It's too easy to say that. You're not really attacking the root problem, because if you say he's no good, he's got to go, who are you replacing him with? Gerard Mayo? Look, I think Gerard's an outstanding football coach. But you still have to match Gerard with someone who's likely got to make the call on who you're picking and who you're taking and who you're drafted and who you're coaching. Can you do that? And then you might be saying, well, no, you can't do that, so let's just clean house. I would understand that too. I get that point of view. But you still haven't answered the question. Who are you replacing him with? So you got to have that, first and foremost, you got to have that in mind before you ever go, he's out. You got to have a replacement in mind. And if you're like, well, let's just open it up and we'll interview people left and right. No, it doesn't work that way anymore. You can't, first of all, there'll be teams that'll tell you, nope, get your hands off of our guy. No, you don't have permission. And then, of course, the longer you wait, the more other teams pass you by even further. No, you need to have a pretty good idea who you want to go after. You need to have done your homework. You need to have, some recognition of who and what is performing well in your business. In the financial world, in the business world, okay? I've always heard the old adage that, I hear in a lot of different areas, but, keep your friends close, but keep your enemies and competitors closer. 100%. 100%. Because if I'm trying to whip the guy that's, staring at me across the, the table, or, staring at me across the boardroom, or, the stock exchange or whatever, I'm trying to whip him. Hey, you got something that's working? Guess what? I'm going to try it. Unless, of course, it's proprietary. Then it'd be stealing. But no, that's not the way it is in the real world. It's not the way it is. People borrow from each other good ideas all the time. All the time. We don't reinvent the wheel. Hey, it's working for you? I bet I can make it work for me. Done. So you got to be observant. Who's working? Who's working? Who's getting it done right now? Where's a good combination? I think it's a little dangerous now, and I think we've learned the hard way here. I think it's a little dangerous now to have a coach and GM be one person. I'm not saying it can't be done. With all due respect to Coach Belichick, I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm saying right now it's not successful. How do we fix this? And if you fix it by bringing somebody else in, is it someone that Bill will listen to? Is someone that Bill will trust? Is it someone that Bill can get along with if he's going to remain coach for a few more years? Or because I think that's what a lot of people see right now. Okay, who are you going to find? You got to have an idea before you pull the trigger. In the meantime, there's football to play. In the meantime, is there any hope for anybody on this roster right now? That's really part of the issue with these New England Patriots. Can they week to week make chicken salad out of chicken bleep?
A real woman could stop you from drinking.
It has to be a real big woman.
It's time to go around the NFL with football guru Russell Baxter
From now on, your name is Flounder.
on Patriots Playbook.
Flounder?
Russell Baxter, how are you today, my friend?
Well, I'm good. It's kind of ironic about my opening here because the real flounder right now happens to be in New England.
Oh, no doubt about that. No doubt about that. I got to admit, I've spent the whole show today largely just kind of like trying to talk myself into jumping off the Braga Bridge down the road. It's just kind of like, wow. I mean, it's not that desperate, of course, but I'm just, no one is used to this around here. And so nobody really knows how to act or react to what we've seen. And we've seen really bad football, especially over the last 2 weeks. It hasn't gotten any better. It's regressed. Why has it regressed? And a lot of it gets pointed back to the coach and to the personnel decisions and any other number of reasons. And I there's no quick fix to this. I think you can kind of, apply a tourniquet and stop some of the bleeding. But I think there have to be long-term considerations here now to the direction of this team and of this franchise, which will need to start to be being made now in hopes that when this is over, 12 weeks from now, the Patriots are ready to make a move and go forward. Whether Bill is included or not, that may be determined over these next 12 weeks, and it certainly could happen. I mean, I'll throw anything out there. I'll be up for any possibility, but it's clear the present cannot exist any longer. Otherwise, a Patriots ownership group that has seen $130 million investment grow into a worth of $7 billion over the last 30 years is going against every foundation of business principles, and that is protecting your investment.
Well, I don't think you could say it any better than that. I mean, this went from a team that, for a 2-decade span became a brand. And
it is a brand. It has been a brand for a long time, but the brand is now being made fun of again. Just like it did back in the heyday when, Pat Patriot, I remember a couple of brands, I'm going to be politically incorrect here, but I remember seeing a logo of the old Pat Patriot with a noose around his neck, or with his tongue hanging out, with a hammer on his head and things like that. I've seen all kinds of things like that. And I saw some NFL memes, on X this week, with people making fun of the Patriots. And you know what? I'm applauding them because it's been a long time since they've had a chance to make fun of New England being the worst team in football, but they got it now.
Yeah, and when I say a brand, I mean that in the positive sense. I mean, obviously, the Patriots have been around for a long time, but there was, that lack of success and also some other negative connotations regarding the franchise with certain things that had happened and so on. But that all turned around 2 decades ago.
Sure.
Yeah. I can't get 72-3 out of my mind, John.
Listen, 69 of those points of those 72 unanswered, Russell.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, you get beat 69-0, even though it covers a couple of games. You stink. You stink.
Well, there's a lifelessness now to the team the last 2 weeks, and it's hard to put a finger on. I know for some people the answers are obvious, but I'm going to jump on something you talked about a few minutes ago, and that's that coach GM thing.
Yep.
And I've been a big person, and listen, my coaching resume and my GM resume are well known because they don't exist. But I think it is extremely difficult to do both jobs in this day and age. Now, I'm going to jump back to 2 men who were in the Pro Football Hall of Fame who did this awfully well. Bill Walsh, obviously, who in 1986 orchestrated one of the great drafts of NFL history without a first-round pick, and Jimmy Johnson with the Dallas Cowboys. And I'm pointing out those 2 men because they were able to do both jobs successfully.
I'd give more of the credit there, Russell, to Walsh over Johnson because Johnson always had Jerry Jones breathing down his neck, and that's the reason why Johnson left.
Yes. But Jimmy, I contended that Jimmy's eye for talent might have been even better than his coaching prowess, which is saying a lot. But my point here is when Bill Walsh did what he did and Jimmy Johnson did what he did with the Dallas Cowboys, there was free agency in Jimmy's first year, in Jimmy's final year, 1993, John. But one thing neither men had to deal with was a salary cap. And that changes everything. And then Jimmy, of course, in 1996 took over the Miami Dolphins and inherited a monster salary cap that the Dolphins had rung up in 1995 because they were desperately trying to bring in veterans and trying to get Dan Marino a ring.
Mm-hmm.
And it blew up in their face, and Don Shula wound up retiring. In a salary cap era where you have to make both on-the-field decisions, drafting decisions, and financial decisions, that's a lot for one person.
Mm-hmm.
And, the Patriots have not had a great eye for drafting the last, I would say, decade or so.
Yeah.
They've hit on some people. They've been more successful getting free agents than they have necessarily drafting players. So it's all kind of caught up with them right now. And, we're seeing a number of franchises, storied franchises, struggle in this day and age of like the modern football and so on. A salary cap era and a free agency era where you can turn things around in one season. The difference is having staying power, and a lot of these one-year turnarounds don't last very long, which is, again, why you give credit to New England what they did for so long. Listen, this week's opponent can tell you something about falling about hard times.
Mm-hmm.
The Raiders have been pretty much disastrous for more than 2 decades now. They haven't won a playoff game since they beat the Titans in the 2002 AFC title game.
Wow. Yeah.
That should tell you something.
Yeah, that's true. You're right. Long time. It has been a long time.
Well, here's something that might frighten you a little more, though. I just talked about how much the Raiders have struggled since, for 20-something years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Let's just do this century, John. 2020. The Raiders made one playoff appearance and lost, and they own a 26-29 regular season record. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
That sound familiar?
26-29?
Yeah.
That's the Patriots record.
Right. And the Patriots also made the playoffs once and lost as well.
Right.
Isn't that kind of ironic, considering we're going to see Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniels against each other this week?
Sure.
Yeah.
And you can also look up and down, and I mentioned this to Jason Horowitz of the Raiders Radio earlier in the program, Russell, that these two teams are really intertwined. I mean, you've got like 9 players. You got like 6 or 7 coaches. You got 5 scouts. You got, that all worked in New England, either with Josh or for Bill at one point in time. Now, currently on the Vegas, team website. So, I mean, it's kind of like, wow, these two teams, these two guys, these organizations have a lot in common, which is kind of some of the intrigue for a 1-4 team against a 2-3 team.
Well, here's another commonality almost. The Patriots lost to the Eagles 25-20 in week 1.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't reached the 20-point mark in any game since.
Right.
Okay?
Correct. Yep.
Now, by the way, the Raiders haven't reached the 20-point mark in any game.
At all. Right.
Season.
Correct.
So that tells me we're looking at like 45-42 on Sunday.
That would be a perfect fit, right here, just to see something like that happen, because it just defies logic.
Here's what we know on Sunday. Jacoby Myers won't be throwing the ball backwards to Chandler Jones.
That's also true. So, I mean, wow. Return to the scene of the absolute crime that, kind of started these Patriots on this current spin that they have not been able to pull themselves out of, and that's really sort of the ironic thing about going back out to Vegas again this year. All right, so let's take a look at least before we come back to this one, a couple of games that I need to mention here. You've got the winless Carolina Panthers going to the division-leading AFC East division-leading Miami Dolphins, but notice that Devon Achane has been put on IR today by the Dolphins. And since he's been put on IR, and he's had a tremendous start in the offensive backfield for Miami, and I think Patriots fans saw that a couple of weeks ago when he was here. Guy is fast. He's really fast. The entire Miami team, unbelievable speed. But his IR designation means he won't be available to play against New England in a couple of weeks. That hurts them in the long term, or at least the medium term, but I don't know if that hurts them enough to make them lose at home to a winless Panther team, does it?
No, because even though they don't have him, they still have Raheem Mostert. And, he's had a decent start himself this year.
Yes.
He was a guy a couple weeks ago that also scored 4 touchdowns in the game.
Yeah.
I was actually, full disclosure, just looking at what the two of them had done, 5 games into the season, and it was starting to stir my mind a little about, when was the last time a team had 2,000-yard rushers in the same season?
Wow. When was that?
Well, it was recently with the Ravens, okay, with Mark Ingram and Lamar Jackson.
And Jackson. Okay, I was about to say, so Jackson, yeah, that had to be the year he did it, yeah.
But it's actually happened 7 times. And I know you'll remember the first time because it was the Miami Dolphins. With Larry
Zonka and Kick. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
No. Zonka and Morris.
Oh, Zonka and Sammy Morris. Not Sammy. Mercury. Thank you. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And if I remember right, I think Mercury had 1,000 on the nose.
On the nose, yeah.
That was a 14-game season. The perfect season of 1972, which I believe. How funny is this? I believe that's the last time the Dolphins led the NFL in rushing, in which they are doing currently.
Right. 72. Yep. At least they won't,
To answer your question, I think Carolina could be in for a long day considering the way they play defense.
Yeah.
We saw what Detroit did to them last week, and what Seattle did to them a couple of weeks ago, and so on. And they're certainly having their issues. Bryce Young, sat Randy Dalton for I think one game. Defensively, they just don't have the people right now.
Right.
So, and they gave up a lot to get Bryce Young.
Sure. Yeah, they did.
So we'll see what direction they've gone on. The Panthers, it's an organization. It's very odd. They opposed to Jacksonville. Jacksonville's never been to the Super Bowl. Carolina's been there twice. They both came in the league in 1995. John, do you know that the Panthers have still never had back-to-back winning seasons?
No, I wasn't aware of that. That's incredible.
Yeah.
See, it just goes to show you, Russell, no matter how bad you how bad you have it.
Got it worse.
Yeah, somebody's got it worse somewhere. That's very true. Eagles playing at the Jets. So you got the unbeaten Eagles, testing the Jets, and the Jets don't look like a 2-3 team. Zach Wilson hasn't played like the Zach Wilson we saw a few weeks ago. I don't know. Can the Jets do that at home?
Well, if they managed to knock off the Eagles, they would actually make a little history.
Okay.
Because they've never beaten the Eagles.
What? Wait, what?
They've never beaten the Philadelphia Eagles in the regular season.
I obviously did not know that.
Yeah. You begin to sound like Chris Myers. So.
I did not know that.
Yeah. But, yeah, I mean, as strange as it sounds, and it's not like they play each other a lot, okay? I mean, they played each other 12 times in the regular season. This will be the third time in 5 years they played each other. Yeah, but the Eagles are 12-0 against the Jets right now.
Wow.
What does that mean this week? I have no idea.
It may not mean a damn thing. I know. The Eagles are a 7-point road favorite in that one. I also want to point at the Giants at the Bills. Buffalo struggled last week. Buffalo looked mortal last week. And the Giants, again, they're one of those teams that are down there kind of mired in the muck with the Patriots. No matter how bad you got it, somebody else has it as bad or worse than you do. And I'm just because this is a state thing, I don't know if it really means anything or not, but this could either be a real get healthy opportunity for the Bills, and health being the key word there, or it could be a get straight game for the Giants.
Well, Miami got rolled by the Bills a couple of weeks ago, and then they played the Giants last week and got awful healthy. The key to Buffalo, who has been very erratic, they're 3-2. When they hold on to the ball, they're in pretty good shape. But Jacksonville moved the ball up and down in them last week.
Mm-hmm.
Well over 400 yards, and that was with Trevor Lawrence throwing a couple of interceptions.
You mean London?
London, yes.
Yeah, the London Jaguars.
Yeah, the London. That's right. This week it's the London Ravens and the London Titans.
Right,
but,
right.
Here's ominous news for the Giants. Last week, in the loss to Miami, they finally scored a first half touchdown in this season in 5 games.
Wow.
The bad news was it was a 102-yard interception return. So their offense has yet to score a touchdown in the first half in 5 games.
Like I said.
And all told, the Giants have been outscored in the first half, 94-19.
Again, I will repeat, no matter how bad you got it. Holy crap. We don't have to go too far to really find somebody who else is kind of struggling with the football right now.
Well, listen, it's kind of rampant around the league, okay? To me, San Francisco is kind of a notch above everybody, okay? I would say Philadelphia is 1A. But we got a lot of muddledness with the 3 and 2s and 4. It's funny. You make a great case that the Detroit Lions are playing in, just about as good football as anyone, other than San Francisco. Because San Francisco is on a different wavelength, both offensively and defensively.
Agreed.
Okay?
Agreed.
I mean, they've scored at least 30 points in every game. Okay, they've given up. Their scoring differential this season, John, is already plus 99.
Wow.
After
in
5
weeks.
games.
That means you're beating teams by 20 points a week.
Yeah, exactly. I said, they have really taken no prisoners. I know the Rams got within 7. I mean, but they pummeled the Steelers and they pummeled the Giants and they pummeled the Cardinals and they really humbled the Cowboys last week in a big way. They run the ball, they throw the ball, they play good defense. They're a really, really complete team. And you go back to last year, they've now won 15 regular season games. Okay? That's nothing to sneeze at. And they've done it with a couple different quarterbacks. They, for the most part, have won those games handily.
Crazy.
If you include the playoffs, they're 17-1 in their last 18 games. The only losses in the NFC title game to Philadelphia, Purdy got hurt.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, they're head and shoulders above just about everybody. But I got to admit, it's going to be a real easy route for me this year. I'm pulling for the Lions because they've never done nothing.
Well, the last time the Lions won an NFL championship was 1957, which
Correct.
is so old even I wasn't born.
Correct. Me either. Me either. And I've already stressed how old I am in this program today, and I managed to come up with an old joke on myself every week on this show. It seems like, but no, I wasn't even alive when the Lions last won. So I will gladly follow the Lions with great interest this year. And I think push comes to shove, I'm gonna wear my Detroit blue and silver.
There you go. Well, listen. They haven't won a playoff game since '91. They haven't won a division title in 30 years since it was the NFC Central. Okay?
Roar, Lions, roar. Let's go.
The streaks go on and on and on.
Yeah, don't they?
And I want to jump back to the Niners game this week because they played Cleveland on Sunday.
Yep.
Which I find to be very intriguing. Now, we're not sure who the Browns quarterback is going to be. It sounds like Watson is still dealing with a rotator cuff injury and so on. They might have a third different new starting quarterback this year. But it's hard to ignore the fact that the Browns have given up only 5 offensive touchdowns in 4 games. That is a very fierce pass rush that they have in their own right with Myles Garrett and Zadarius Smith and Shelby Harris and Tomlinson. Jim Schwartz, pretty good. Maybe not the greatest head coach, but a quality defensive coordinator. Remember, he helped the Eagles win a Super Bowl a couple of years ago.
Yeah, right.
So that to me is a very, very intriguing matchup in a week where we have a lot of interconference games this week.
All right, well, it's not interconference, but at the same time, the Patriots playing in Vegas for a second straight year after the bizarre throwback from Jacoby Myers. Last year cost the Patriots a potential win on the road, and The only saving grace here is that Jacoby can't do that to the Patriots this year, but he can certainly throw it back to somebody on his team for a touchdown, I suppose, if they get him the ball enough. And there are a lot of parallels between these two teams. It seems like the Patriots actually kind of match up a little bit against a Raider defense that has had statistically some issues, but they certainly seem to overcome a few of those against Green Bay this past Monday night. I mean, if you're going to get well, it's good to get well on the road, especially. I just don't know if the timing is right here for the Patriots anywhere they go into this year.
Yeah, I will say this, though. Jimmy Garoppolo, who has not started every game this year, okay? And, Aiden O'Connell had to come in when they played the Chargers because he was in concussion protocol. But when Garoppolo has played, he's been less than stellar, okay? And, he has had trouble hanging on to the ball, okay? So there's a reason this team can't get out of its own. First off, they can't run, okay? You've got the NFL's rushing champion from a year ago, Josh Jacobs, on a team that is dead last in rushing.
Which is nuts.
Okay?
Yeah.
The Raiders are 29th in total defense. Total offense.
Yep.
So they are just not generating much whatsoever. And I know New England's having its own offensive problems, but you look at what Garoppolo has done. High completion percentage, I get that, but he has thrown 7 picks in 4 games.
Yeah.
And all it takes is for listen, the Patriots have seen their share of turnovers and turns or touchdowns the last couple of weeks. Okay, they could certainly switch here. There's no doubt about it. This is a coin flip game as far as I'm concerned because of the way both teams are playing, and neither of it is very good.
Yeah, Vegas is a 3-point home favorite, which is basically what you get when you have home field advantage, is 3 points.
Oh, I see. I misunderstood that. I thought 3 was the over-under.
Might be. I mean, would it surprise anybody if it was a 3-0 final? No. I don't think it would.
No, I don't think so at all.
The over-under, by the way, on the Patriots-Raiders, as I presently have it in front of me, is 41.5. I'm hitting that puppy like a big dog.
It's funny. You're not surprised about the Raiders, because they have really been dismal for a long. I mean, again, they haven't won a playoff game since 2002. They've only made the playoffs a couple times since 2003.
Yeah.
So that organization has gone through a lot of quarterbacks, an awful lot of head coaches, and they've really hit the skids. I mean, this is one of the proud franchises in the league since the merger, and they slowly just tumbling right down the win-loss standings in terms of most wins since the merger.
Right.
But the Patriots is shocking, and I understand them being mediocre the last couple of years, but to see some of the eggs that have been laid by them the last 2 weeks again, I can't get 72-3 out of my mind because it's just not something.
No.
I mean, it's strange to see any team lose by that.
I know.
But the Patriots, I mean, I see Bill Belichick. You're around the organization, obviously, far more than I am because I'm not at all. And I see him in press conference, and for the lack of a better word, he just looks defeated.
I think that's a pretty good characterization.
He looks defeated, and as weird as this may sound, we talked about change and what could be coming and all that stuff. This is just my personal opinion based on seeing his reaction the last couple of weeks. He seems like too proud of a man to be fired.
I agree. I don't think an in-season firing would ever happen. I'm definitely right there with everybody that said that. I do think though that you could see a mutual parting of the ways happen after the year is over, or you could see if that doesn't happen, you could see him bringing in someone to help with shall we say general manager duties. I could see that definitely happen. But something has to happen, because if it doesn't, it's kind of like when the Patriots, they win the coin flip every game and they defer. Okay?
Right.
And clearly that doesn't work anymore because you're not a talented enough team to be able to do the double score at the end of the first half. It's been a pet peeve of mine for years, and most of my listeners here, they understand all that, but he keeps doing it. And I'm wondering, this team has had such a hard time playing from behind. Why wouldn't you try to take the ball one time to see if you can get the lead and play with the lead? But no, we're not going to do that because we're stuck in our ways of doing things. And when you keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting it to be different, and it doesn't change, that's insanity. It's insanity.
Yeah, it's going to be this will be an interesting afternoon, because if they are not competitive against this team, there's going to be the microscope is going to grow, and it's already hot.
Yeah,
and
it is.
And I will say this: I think Bill Belichick is also in a tough spot here in this sense, because if he by chance made the decision to leave, and I'm not saying he would, there's going to be a faction of people who say, "Well, you made the mess, and now you're going to quit on it."
Yeah, right.
So,
that's a good point.
We know this. Because of their success for the last 20 years, there are people ready to pounce.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And
100%. Yeah.
And not appreciate, because that's what I've read all week. Boy, more than ever, now we know it was all Tom Brady.
Yeah.
And
which couldn't be further from the truth, but I mean that's
correct.
Yeah.
Because Tom Brady isn't Tom Brady without Bill Belichick's help.
Absolutely, 110%. Yeah.
For some reason, we have people who watch football, even people in our medium, who continue to insist this is all about one person, regardless of who the team is.
It's never about one person. It never has been and never will be about one person, ever.
Right. I mean, that's like saying you do a radio show and you produce it as well.
No, I leave that to the Marine. He's the expert.
Yeah. I didn't mean you specifically.
Russell, I love you, brother. Talk to you soon.
I will. Yes, you will.
All right.
Yes, you will, and hopefully more pleasant conversation next Wednesday.
Yes, sir. That's what we'll plan on. Thank you. The one and only Russell S. Baxter at Bax Football Guru on X. Patriots fans, if you want to see Toyota's best offers, including those not seen on TV, go to buyatoyota.com. It's Toyota's official website for deals from the official vehicle of the New England Patriots, Toyota. Let's go places. I'm going to end the program with the final words here from 2 emails that I've gotten earlier in the show, because I didn't really give you guys a chance to have a ton of feedback today, so I want to take the time here. Chad in the ATL. The way you fix this, John, isn't something that can happen in the middle of a season. It seems like Bill has been so hesitant to press the reset button fully after Brady left, and I think it's obviously because he wants to beat that Shula record. I've said as much. I would agree with you. I really believe this team could be good given time. The only issue is Bill doesn't have time. Feels like he's continuing to try and correct this team with short-term fixes, not long-term fixes. If he's wanting to beat that record, then maybe he should go elsewhere to a team that already has all of the pieces. Stop preventing the Patriots team from properly rebuilding and developing. The hybrid rebuild experiment failed. Some excellent points there, Chad. Greg from Shrewsbury. John, what do you think is the possibility of releasing Bill Belichick after this year and pursuing Jim Harbaugh as the new coach? No. Is that succinct enough for you? Harbaugh? Nah. Is it impossible? No. God, everybody's on deck. I would have to admit, look, I'd do what it takes right now. If I had to say this organization had a coach opening, all right, with all due respect to Gerard, with all due respect to Bill O'Brien, who I think, obviously has been a head coach and could be a head coach again in this league, I don't know if this is the right place based on what I think this team needs. This team needs new, different thinking. I'd go right after Mike Shanahan. Go right to the damn top. San Francisco 49ers right now are the best team in pro football. I'd also take a look at my arch rival down in South Florida, Mike McDaniel. I get that young punk up here. I'd have to think hard and long about that one. But I'd certainly say he's worth a talk to based on what he's got going thus far. Just two names I'd throw out there. And that's just me, my own personal opinion. I don't know that that's going to happen. But if you're really going to move on from a Hall of Famer, if you're really going to move on from, if you're trying to move on from the greatest quarterback of all time and you're going to move on from the greatest coach of all time, don't you want to go to the top? Don't you want to get the guys who are hot now and see if they can sustain that, for lack of a better phrase, hotness? Right? Okay. Score big with Bob's unbeatable savings on power reclining furniture, perfect for game day viewing, with features like hidden drop-down tables for snacks and bevs and convenient USB ports. You'll never have to get up and miss a play, but only when you shop at Bob's, the official furniture store of the New England Patriots. Maureen, thank you for your help today. Our thanks to Jason Horowitz of the Vegas Raiders, Andy Hart from WEEI, Evan Lazar, and you, Russell Baxter, as well. Same Patch time, same Patch channel next Wednesday, 2 p.m. Eastern time, right here on Patriots.com radio in the playbook. Maybe we have some different results to talk about next week. Won't that be nice for a change? But if not, hey, we'll break it down. We'll cover it down. And we'll roll it forward. See you then.
Thank you for downloading this podcast. Subscribe on Apple, Google Play, and everywhere else you listen. Like the show? Please rate and review us. Listener comments and ratings help keep us high in the podcast rankings so new listeners can find us. Be sure to check Patriots.com for more news and more podcasts.